Hello and welcome to Live with the Pricing Lady. I'm Janine Listis. This show is all about helping you build a more sustainably profitable business by understanding the tactics and strategies of pricing and helping you to execute them better. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to today's guests, Ilana Jankovic and Clara Kreitz. Hello, ladies.
Hi, Janine. Hello, everybody.
Hello, also from my side. Also, thank you very much for being here today.
Yes, you're welcome. So today's episode is something that I've had on my mind for quite a while, for about a year now. I've been wanting to introduce panel episodes into the show mix. So maybe once or twice a quarter, we will try and bring these in for all of you listeners out there so that you can enjoy lots of different topics and opinions. So today, why don't we go ahead and start as usual with a few rapid fire questions. And Clara, I'll start with you. Where are you calling from today?
I'm in lovely Kirchberg, close to Zurich in Switzerland.
Super. And Ilana, where are you calling from?
I'm in Summicon in Zurich.
In Zurich as well. So we got three non-Swiss ladies all living in Switzerland. Where are you from originally, ladies?
I'm originally from South Africa, but I am Swiss now. So I have a Swiss passport.
Me too. But yeah. And Clara?
It's complicated. So I was born actually in Ireland, but grew up in Italy, Germany. My father's American. I'm now in Switzerland. So, you choose.
Okay. So we've got the melting pot right here, at least a good portion of it. Excellent. Second question, Ilana, we'll start with you. What's your superpower?
I think my intuition, that I'm able to often know what's going on when I'm working with someone without actually them telling me. My energies that I pick up what's actually happening and what they're not telling me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Excellent.
I've learned to love it and value it.
Yeah. It's a good skill to have. Yeah. And Clara, how would you describe your superpower?
So I'm not sure if it's a superpower, but I really like to work 80-20. So I'm not the perfectionist. Mm-hmm. And I think that actually helps in business. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it helps in a lot of aspects, not just business. Yeah. We say in the US, we say it's good enough for government work.
Yes.
Version of the 80-20 rule. Cool. Excellent. Last rapid fire question. Clara, what's one thing that people don't usually know about you that you'd like to share with us, that is?
So some people actually know this about me, but not in a business context. So I really also love to travel. And if I wouldn't have founded a business in the finance space, it would be with travel. I've visited over 100 countries, still counting, and more to go. So there's also a bucket list.
That's super. Excellent. What's one of your favorite places?
Yeah, that's the tricky question, right?
So that's why I said one of.
Yes, I think one of my favorite places was actually Southern Africa. I wouldn't be able to pinpoint one country, but I started with Namibia, which I absolutely loved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Super. Excellent. And Ilana, what's one thing that people don't usually know about you you'd like to share?
That I went to an all-boys school. Grew up with 4 brothers, so was quite a tomboy. And I love rugby, love watching rugby. I think a lot of people know that about me. So, yeah, bit of a tomboy at heart.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. This sounds like a topic for a totally different episode about going to an all-boys school for sure. Must have some interesting stories to tell. Okay, now let's take a moment to get to know you each about, how you got to where you are today. Ilana, why don't we start with you, and you can share a bit how you got into your business and what it is you do.
Okay, into the money coaching business. So I've had my own business literally for years. And so business for me is easy. Marketing, the whole business side. Got into, when I moved to Switzerland, I needed to go for coaching because I all believe that we've got inner work to do on ourselves, and I needed to fix my relationship with money. It was atrocious. I did not have a very healthy relationship, which was actually causing a lot of marriage problems because we were always fighting about money. When I went for the coaching, I realized I had such breakthroughs and it was just life-changing. I realized that this was something that what had happened to me, I wanted to help other women. And I started investigating, looking into how I could actually do this and combine my business experience and actually take it forward to help them grow their business, make money, but fix money. So that's how I got into where I am.
And so how would you describe the value that your clients get from working with you?
They learn to be very comfortable with money, that money can actually create fun, that it's fun to budget. It's not something scary, because normally I ask them, where do they feel it in their body when I mention certain words? And they normally say in their gut or in their throat, which isn't a good sign. As well as they become free. They learn that it's actually, they can be abundant and that money can come in from many different areas. I teach them how to make the most money in their businesses. And if their businesses aren't making money, a lot of them actually quote me and say, you always say that if my business isn't making money, then it's a hobby. Well, it is. I teach them how to actually make money and where the money opportunities are.
Excellent. Excellent. Can't wait to learn more. All right, Clara, why don't you share with us a bit about your journey to starting your own business and what you do?
Yeah, so I originally come from the banking industry. I've been working there for over 10 years. And the reason why I founded Finel, so Finel focuses on financial education as well as financial planning, specifically for women, was because I realized working at the bank that a lot of women also working at the bank did not take care of their finances because there are very few female financial advisors and also in the product space. So that kind of led one to another. And I focused then specifically on that subject. First of all, wanting to be a female financial advisor, but also addressing certain topics that you would not necessarily see with a typical financial planner or financial advisor at a bank or insurance company. Yeah, so I really look at it more from a holistic picture.
And how would you describe the value ultimately that your clients get from working with you?
I think the main one I see is a little bit like peace of mind. So often they come with questions surrounding topics such as retirement planning and investing, and they want to know how well they are or not, and then if we can come up with strategies so that they are okay. So it's peace of mind, and at the end, actually, really financial confidence and financial freedom. Yeah.
Right. Excellent. So I've got the two right people here with me today for sure. Excellent. So I'd like to start by just reflecting a bit, each of you. When I first approached you about doing this episode on women and money, what was it that came to mind first for you? Who would like to start? I'll let you choose.
I'm happy.
Go ahead, Ilana.
Okay. I work predominantly with women. So I used to work with men. I actually used to do couple coaching, but I found it that I didn't really want to do it after a while because it kind of was, it's really, really hard. They used to attack each other while we were having a session. And I just thought, I'm not enjoying this. This job is actually, I want to resign, but it was my own business. I couldn't resign. So I just then made the decision to actually work only with women. And helping women to feel empowered with money is one of the most amazing things that you can give them, tools that you can give them. And I really believe that the journey that we go on with money starts in the home. So by teaching women how to do it, you're leaving a legacy, you're leaving the most amazing opportunities and legacy for the next generation. So it's not in the schools, I believe, that it must be done. I believe it's with the women, doesn't matter what age they are. The younger I get them, the better. They're in their 20s, early 30s, beautiful. But it doesn't actually matter what age, but just helping them and just helping them be free is the most beautiful, amazing thing.
Clara, what were your first thoughts, or what came to mind for you?
Yes, I think because you're working mainly with clients on the pricing side, what came to my mind is like, because I mainly work also with women, and there are some that are self-employed, but then there are others that have an employment or work for a corporate organization. And what I often see is that when they start to dig deeper into the money topic, either on the soft side mindset piece or on the hard side, and they realize how the system works, often that has an impact at the end also on their pricing or on their salary negotiation. I think when you really realize and get down to the numbers, then you get really motivated in actually not only leveraging your assets and wealth, but also bringing up your income to as an additional stepping stone. And I think that's really nice, because you can see how confidence and competence are super closely interlinked.
Yeah, very strong connection. And for you, Clara, when you think of the soft skills and the hard skills when it comes to money and specifically to personal finance, I'm curious, what are those soft skills and what are those hard skills? How would you describe them?
Well, I think from the soft skill side, I would probably agree with what Ilana said, that a lot of times, if we think about how we deal with money, it's very ingrained in how we were brought up, what our parents told us about money, what we saw around us. We go either exactly as our parents or the complete opposite. But being aware of what it does to your money management skills, I think is super important, because what I see also is that the soft part also affects the hard side of money. So what I typically do is I work a lot on like budgeting skills, investments, looking into retirement planning and the likes. And I believe if you really want to deal with the hard facts, you need the soft skills in order to support that. Because even if you know the perfect budget, you have put it together, you still need the motivation and self-reflection in order to actually go with that budget. And as Ilana already said, also start to have fun with it. And I think that's why I believe they go hand in hand with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I see the same thing in pricing all the time. And a lot of times people will come to me and I always joke that they think I have this Rolodex of prices in my head, and that they say, oh, Janine, I make these, tell me what price, that I can go click, 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 and pull out a little card that says the price should be blah, blah, blah. But it always amazes me, because I know even if I tell them a price, that if they don't believe it and feel confident or feel aligned with it, it won't make a matter of difference, because they won't then be able to get that price. And to me, again, that's a similar demonstration of that link between, if they do the work and they understand why that price and not this price, they know where that price comes from, then they'll be more aligned with it. And therefore, they'll be in a better position to be able then to use that price effectively. And I'm sure that there's lots of different areas in which those two things are very connected.
Yeah, and I think I would add, it's very closely also linked to self-worth, right? And I think the more aligned you feel about, for example, pricing, if you're self-employed, and the actual service, and you see that you're really helping people, and then I think that's a really nice spot also in your business if you're self-employed. I think that is something that you see, or I saw at least with some of the clients, that that's where the magic and the fun starts, right?
Yeah. So Ilana, I'll come to you in a moment because I have another question. But in a lead up to that question, I'm curious for both of you, and I'm going to share my own first here. What have you recognized in your own mindset? Some of those challenges that you've had. I know for me, a lot of my decisions when I was in that transition of going from school to deciding what to do with the rest of my life, that a lot of my decisions were based on, well, I can make more money if I go in this route and I can take care of myself better. And it was all about planning and planning and planning. And that was what drove a lot of my decisions, and probably to some extent still does today, I hope that I've, balanced that out a bit. So I'm curious, Ilana, I mean, did you have some struggles as well? Or have you found yourself with some mindset challenges yourself?
Can I just go back slightly onto what you were saying a minute ago? So you were talking about the hard side and the soft side. The soft side is basically the EQ of money, the psychology of money, where Clara does the IQ, the harder side, which is telling you what to do with your money. The emotional side, the EQ, is all the emotions. Exactly what Clara was saying, and I just want to kind of add to that, is how you feel about yourself. Your self-worth is very linked to the way you earn, how much you would ask for an increase, your self-confidence, that you would actually go to the boss and say, I want that raise, or I want that promotion. There's also obviously the other side of the emotional stuff, which is the fear, the anxiety, the lack, the scarcity, and all of those things that come in. But there's so many emotions around the soft side, and women often get caught up because we all are emotional beings. We get caught up in the emotions, and that's where this whole thing comes into. We get stuck in fear and these limiting beliefs, and the glass ceiling's just here, and I can't have more, and I can't, and then it's a man's world, and you start actually just pushing yourself smaller and smaller and smaller. So that's more just on the soft side, that I just sort of wanted to add to that.
Thank you.
Okay. Your question was just how I feel?
Like your own personal money journey.
My money journey was terrible to start off with. But I've always been an entrepreneur from a very young age, and I've always had my own business. So, and when coming to Switzerland, the company that actually brought my husband out, I sold my business to them a couple of years before. And when he finished his executive MBA, he was working for the company. They wanted him in another job, in another position altogether. They wanted to actually bring him out to Switzerland. So it was kind of through my connections and my entrepreneurial business that I had. So I've always had business is very easy for me. I can see how to create business. It's very natural for me. And that's the part that I absolutely love. So I've always known that I would go into my own business. There's been a very, very short time where I've actually worked for a boss. That answers your question.
Interesting. And so one of the things that I learned when I first started my own business, I was looking at Habitudes. Have you ever looked at Habitudes, the Habitudes cards, which are money mindset cards? And they talked about, and I know you have your archetypes, so they have a similar thing. They don't call them archetypes, but they have a similar thing about, how you kind of deal with money in different ways, or what drives your money-based decisions. Are you familiar with those?
Not those, but I'm very familiar. I mean, I haven't looked into those, and there probably are quite a few. I've studied the archetypes, which come from Carl Jung, who was a Swiss philosopher in the 1900s. And I know the archetypes. I can read someone's archetypes and tell them all about their marriage and about what's going on in their business and what's going on with their kids. And people are like, wow, because it actually tells you so much about the person's characteristics and how they're living on a day-to-day basis, their decision-making, as well as just where the fears are and where the challenges are. And I can see that from the archetypes. The money archetypes I've designed myself together with my husband. My husband's an IT engineer, so he's helped me a lot with the quiz and our system that I use. So I use those archetypes every single day, and I'm able to tell exactly what he's going. Often people say to me, I feel naked. I've just had a conversation with you, and I'm like naked in front of you. I'm like, okay. Or they tell me, you've got a glass ball on your table. How do you know that this is going on? Because I can see if there's betrayal or if somebody's in a transition or what's going on just from from what they answer in their quiz.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a gift. Maybe that's also related to your superpower, obviously. Yeah. So, Clara, why don't you share with us a bit? What are some of the challenges that women or people in general, and then women specifically, face in the area of personal finance?
So I would say because of the way we're brought up, and because I think also of missing role models to a certain degree, female role models when it comes to money, I think a lot of women have like certain stereotypes also in their head about like, I'm not good with math, or I'm not even interested in the subject, I'm not good at that, and stuff like that. And that leads often to the fact that they don't actually deal with their personal finances. So budgeting is one thing, but then also the more long-term topics such as retirement planning and investing, which I believe women actually even need to take care of it more than men due to structural things such as gender pay gap, pension gap, and the likes. And I think because also of these like stereotypes and upbringing, often they're a bit scared to take care of these topics. And that's where I usually start to work with them, is to help them understand how the system works and how to navigate it in order to also utilize it for themselves. Because there are these challenges, but interestingly enough, if women actually understand how it works, often they're the better investors because they're less prone to certain behavioral biases such as overconfidence and the like. So there's also the good side of it. So I personally think it's more getting started and actually taking the courage to take care of their personal situation.
So I'm curious for both of you, when you were growing up, who was the money person in the family? Or was there one? Maybe there were two. Maybe they're both involved.
To be honest, it was my grandmother.
Very interesting.
So in my particular case, actually, I did have a good role model. My grandmother, she was always a businesswoman. And in her marriage, she was actually the person who was running the business, and her husband, who's not my grandfather, was taking care of the household and the likes. So he had a little bit different mindset. And obviously that led to the fact that in my personal world, being a woman, having her own business, not being tied to, caretaker activities was definitely something that influenced my thinking very strongly. And then my mom was also self-employed, so she ran her business because we were 4 kids, and that's the only way to actually take care of your 4 kids and somehow manage a career without the strict 9-to-5 rules and all this kind of stuff. So I think that was much easier for her to handle.
Interesting. And you, Ilana?
Well, definitely my mom. I mean, my dad passed away when we were very young. So my mom had to handle 5 kids on her own. And it's quite interesting because majority of the women that I work with they often come to me when there's already probably about 70% at the moment that I'm working with are ladies that are gone through a divorce or going through a divorce. So they've never had to look at money before.
Yeah.
Money's never been a problem. Somebody else has handled it. It's a guy's job to do it. And now all of a sudden they've got to handle it. And for my mom, it was exactly the same. She trusted my dad. She thought that my dad had everything sorted out. And he drove around with an unsigned will and unsigned policies in the glove box of his car. And he was just too afraid to look at it. So when he passed away, he left her with nothing. And I saw her working literally 3 jobs and into the night. So that was my role model. And I was like, that's not happening to me.
So you decide to go somewhat in the opposite direction, right?
And overcompensated and guilt and all sorts of stuff, because there's a lot of, that's one of the big emotions that come up, guilt and shame and the secrecy and all that about money.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a household where my mom took care of the money. And I never knew anything different. Recently, my mom told me that was because one time my dad, did a few things that he probably shouldn't have do. So she made a deal with him. They made a deal together that he would make the money, she'd take care of the money. And I bow to her as an investment and a personal finance goddess, because she really has done so well for the family. And I wish at times she'd passed a little bit more onto me. I don't know how she, took the opportunity to make the investments that she did, because it's pretty impressive. So it's interesting that we all come from backgrounds and in some aspect where actually our role models were women, but in very different contexts. Thank you for sharing that. So, Ilana, what is it that you think women, when their mindset is right, or maybe let me think about what question I want to ask here for a moment, because I want to understand, what is it that women do really well in the context of money? So maybe be broad and leave the question at that and see what you come back with.
What do they do really, really well? That's normally often really well. Coaching, because often I've worked with a lot of women, and before they've actually done the program, there were a lot of things that they had to unlearn. What they do learn is how to take responsibility, how to budget. That budgeting is actually fun. That knowing where I always say to them, know where your money is going and not wonder where it went. The thing that they do really, really well when they get into that is becoming incredibly conscious of the unconscious spending. Because normally the spending happens around this feeling of not being good enough, or this feeling of not enoughness. Clara mentioned self-worth. And what they do is, what happens often with that is there's addictions attached to it. And addictions are not only spending money, but there's a whole lot of other addictions where they just fill in this hole, this emotional hole. What they do really, really well is they become incredibly conscious of their thoughts and their patterns. And then they start taking control of their money. And it's so beautiful to see, because it's literally day and night. And they realize they can do just as good a job as their husbands. A lot of the ladies that I've worked with have gone on to do investment courses where they're learning to invest money. And some of their husbands are blown away. They're like, wow, this is amazing. This is so sexy. This was the last thing they expected from their wives, to be investing and doing things and saving for the future, saving to buy properties, paying for travel. And it's really amazing to see how empowered that women can be, just as empowered, if not more, than men.
Yeah. And it's so important. A few years back ago, one of my neighbors, she's in her 70s, her husband passed away, and she had never written a check or done any e-banking or anything like that. and it was so overwhelming for her. But once she got it, the capability is there, right? I think that's I think there's no real difference capability wise when it comes to money, what the potential that men and women have. I think the problem comes again, and as you both had mentioned, that often comes from our upbringing and our mindset towards money.
Until they have to.
Or until they have to. Yeah, it's amazing what can happen when you don't have or when you feel like you don't have a choice anymore. Yeah. So Clara, what is it that you think, and in your experience, that women do really well in this area? Anything else to add there?
I think so one thing that I see is when they start to get into the topic, they really take it serious and, really follow through. I think that's something I found quite amazing. To a certain degree, what Ilana already mentioned, what I saw, like, for example, in courses that I did also more on the investment side, that they shared their knowledge with their partner. And some of them were working in the banking industry, and some were also, oh, this is something I didn't even know. And so I think what I think is quite nice is when they start to go into the topic, that they share that with their friends and their partners and so forth, and that actually helps the money relationship, or also the relationship part, which was, they start to have a topic they can discuss together. I think that's super nice. And I think on the investment side, what I often see is that they have a more strict strategy, which we know from statistic works much better than this like trial and error philosophy, what often men apply, which is nice in terms of like you get started instead of like analyzing and at the end you don't take any decision. But I think when they actually start and they put a strategy in place, they stick to it. And I think that's a really something that I see with a lot of women. So I think it's following through, being more consistent, and sharing also their knowledge with their environment. Yeah, including kids. So I often work with moms who then, when they set up their own portfolio, they're like, how can I do this for my kids? How can I share the knowledge and so forth? So it's like thinking even a step further than just, managing their own personal finances.
Yeah. It's super important to pass that on. Whoever it comes from, it's super important to pass that on. Yeah. And those good habits. Yeah. So I'm curious, when it comes to, let's stick with Clara for a moment. So when it comes to personal finance, what are some of the tips or tactics that you can share with people who are listening today about, or the women who are listening specifically today, about what they can do with their money?
So I think what I usually try to separate is into 3 buckets. So the first thing I usually do in my one-on-one work, but also my courses, is really make a health check or an analysis of your current situation. Because often people start with the last step, like, how can I invest, right? But then there's so many questions. How much should I invest? Which product should I invest? Where should I invest? Blah, 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 and so forth. And for this, you need to first do your foundational work. So I often recommend to really get basically all your financial documents sorted and get a good overview of your current income and spendings. Often with this exercise, so looking at, for example, expenses of the last year, going really through them in a detailed manner, most people actually understand how they can optimize that, and often they're shocked, and it's not the typical things like rent and so forth. So it's often you see behavioral patterns when it comes to shopping or other type of things, which they reflect on. The same goes for wealth structure, understanding how much you have in different accounts. Often we forget accounts, including also certain insurances. And then also looking at the retirement situation, how much will I get from different pots? And the same goes for what will I get from different pots in case of death and disability, especially if you have kids or a partner and you bought real estate, because that's where often there's a big gap. So doing that analysis. Second step is then defining really the goals. What are you trying to actually achieve? And then last but not least, actually implementing a plan to achieve these goals based on where you are right now and where you want to go, right? It's a little bit like Google Maps. I'm in Zurich and I want to go to the States, and then obviously the last thing I do is look at how to get where. I first need to understand where I am and where I want to go, right? So that's probably it, from, let's say, a high level perspective.
Yeah. I think for many of us, and probably many of the people listening as well, it's also tricky in the context of being an expat. Of course, being an American, it's like a different level of tricky above and beyond that. But we don't want to get into that today. So sometimes it can feel very mysterious to understand what your options are and what's really needed and what's not needed. And I was very surprised to find out for some of the stuff that I have. I forget, what was it? Was it the pension contribution from the companies I worked for here in Switzerland, that as a single person, the money doesn't necessarily go to my family because I'm not married. And so I thought, oh gosh, okay, I need to understand that better and find out what that means. Of course, that's, once I've passed away and whatever, but still it was important to me to find out, because I earned that money and somebody that I love should benefit from it. Let's put it that way. So very interesting. Thank you for sharing those tips with us. So Ilana, I'm curious, because of course, a lot of what you do with people is kind of like getting them to this point where they can more easily work with someone like Clara as well, or, work with someone like me on pricing in their business. So I'm curious, what are the tips or tactics that people can use to start to prepare themselves from a mindset perspective to, get a hold of or, tackle this topic of money in whatever context that means for them?
It's actually part of it is very similar to what Clara mentioned already, just speaking about money, having a money date with your partner, if you're in a relationship, or with your children, whoever is involved, your loved ones, knowing what you've got, what you don't have, where the gaps are, what is missing. Definitely looking into how you can, how you can slim down the budget, how you can do, so it's basically echoing what Clara said, but I go then more into the ancestral background, into the traumas that happened along the way. And it's very interesting, because when somebody works with me, they often say to me, I had a happy childhood. I was a really happy little girl. Until we actually start digging into the things that happened, then these stories come out. And often in those stories is where all the seeds of I don't deserve this, or I'm not good enough, comes from. All the beliefs that we've been told, that we've heard over the years from our grandparents, the scarcity stories. If our parents have lived or grandparents have lived through the war, all those things are so deep rooted in us. And then we're trying to do things, and we're wondering why we kind of feel like we're on a seesaw, that we're actually not going anywhere. Because consciously we're trying to do something, but subconsciously we actually don't believe we're good enough, or we're never going to achieve those goals. So the work that I do, I go back into the thinking, into where did this all start? And that they do together with me privately, but then we also do in a group. And what is amazing is all the women they find have got the same issues as them. They often think it's just them going through whatever it is, or that they're the only one. And then they realize they're not, and that it's quite universal, the stories. And lots of people, I mean, over the years, people have interviewed me and asked me if I had to say what is the one universal issue that I find with women, it's not enoughness.
I'm not good. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Not enoughness, not enough money, not enough clients. I'm not good enough. I won't have enough. I'm not enough. And it's just so in their DNA.
Yeah.
And they get that from the generation before, and they don't realize the trauma that actually creates.
Yeah.
And you can't just switch it off.
No, you can't. That's very true. One of the things I talk about when I run into this with my clients is we talk about, okay, at what point in time, if we all agree that children, when they come into this world, are worthy, that means that you came into this world worthy. So at what point in time, when you were 3 months or 6 months or a year or 3 years or 10 years or 20 years old, at what point in time did something switch in your brain that made you feel like you were no longer worthy? And I always find that a really interesting discussion. Yeah.
I think it happens already when you're still in your mom's womb, because you're hearing conversations. I've had many, many clients over the years that have told me they know that they weren't wanted, or they know that their father wanted them to be aborted.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then they tell you, when you speak to them, they say, I had a happy childhood. But when you start digging, these things come up. I know that my father wanted me to be aborted because we had 6 other children and they couldn't afford it. We were living in Ireland, or this, whatever the story is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They hear that. Children can hear. And I mean, Clara, you would vouch me for this. They hear those things. They hear those conversations already before they're even born. They're born into a home that's filled with love, but there's also things that are lacking, and that becomes part of the person's DNA that makes us who we are.
Yeah. I'm curious, Ilana, what about, can you pick up something? I mean, because my understanding, and this is just from many courses that I've taken, but not something I studied, deeply. My understanding is that sort of a child's mind is like, I'm here, this is happening, therefore it has to do with me, and I'm kind of the reason that it's happening, right?
Yes.
So do you, as a child, if you see a parent who's in pain or feels unworthy, can a child adopt that?
Yes.
From the parent? Maybe it's not their own like worthiness issue, but they're adopting it from a parent or a trusted loved one, or even a generation or two before.
They always take it on as their fault. A parent is getting divorced, or they're fighting about something. The kid feels it's their fault that they're fighting about whatever it is. And often there's a lot of children suffer abandonment, physical abandonment, or mental or emotional abandonment. Your parents weren't there, they were working. I was in the crib, I was in the daycare, I was with a nanny, I was with a granny. And they feel abandoned. And the whole self-esteem is getting formed at that age. They believe they are to blame. If the parent left, they did something wrong. They were naughty, or they couldn't keep the parent there, the father there, or if a parent passes away. Their child mind doesn't understand what is actually going on, and they take it on as themselves and grow up with an incredible amount of, that's why so many people are in therapy. It's not your fault.
It really isn't, but we take it on. Yeah, we
take it on. We take it on. Your parents got divorced. It's not your fault. You couldn't force your dad to stay. He had another girl down the road.
Yeah. So I think so I want to start wrapping this up, but if I think about the conversation and women and money, and what I've heard today is that there's really no, like, how do I want to say this? I was going to say there's no reason, and that's the wrong statement. So I'm trying to find the right words here, but I mean, there's every reason out there that women can do this as well as anybody else. There really is no difference from like a competence standpoint, from an understanding standpoint. It is totally and completely possible. I think that the big thing comes in the mindset, and part of that is from our upbringing, and part of that is just, we're born with it, let's say. But the important thing is that, at least from my experience and from what I'm hearing for you, and I'd be curious about your thoughts on this, is that the mindset piece is so important to get that right. And I'm not sure, and maybe Ilana, you have a different opinion about this. I'm curious. I'm not sure your mindset is ever fixed, but you're always kind of making progress and chipping away at it and working at it. And then the universe has a way of throwing something at you that's bigger, and it takes you outside your comfort zone again. Is that a fair assessment?
100%.
Okay,
you
good.
basically get triggered until that doesn't trigger you anymore. You've learned the lesson. And then you go on to learn more, because we're on a journey. We're learning lessons every single day. Mm-hmm. And I used to get triggered for things that I couldn't deal with, that I used to suppress. And I'd get triggered until it came up again. And then I'd have to deal with it eventually. Or I would just suppress it like everybody else. Until you actually learn the lesson, you get different lessons and different experiences. So that's 100% true.
Life is good fun, isn't it? Okay, so I've got a couple of wrap-up questions for you, because we're getting to the hour mark here, and I want to make sure that we all get out of here. First of all, thanks to all of you who are joining and watching us live. We're so happy you're here. If you do have questions and haven't had a chance to ask them, put them in the chat, and one of the three of us will get back to you after the show as well. So don't worry about that. So let's think about how we're going to wrap this up here. Clara, why don't you share with us one thing that you want people to remember today based on our conversation about personal finance?
I think one thing is the whole topic around role models. I think just because we don't have them doesn't mean that we cannot think further. Right? So if we have not seen people doing what we want to do, they are out there. They might not be in your personal environment. So I think looking for people to exchange, getting help, or even getting the skills is definitely something that would help you. And then you can be a role model as well for your personal environment. I think that's number one. And the second thing is what you already mentioned is you can do this, right? So finance is not rocket science. Only rocket science is rocket science. It's just a different language, and you don't learn it within a day. It's a process, and it also is a jargon, but you can learn this because many people before have learned this. And as soon as you actually learned it and took care of it, then often that gives has a positive impact, not only on the financial side, but really on the happiness side as well. So people who take care of their money often end up being more happy generally, because they feel safe and secure with their current situation.
I'm so glad that you brought up being a role model as well. And I think that's, for me, from our conversation, that's one of the most important things that I'd like people to take away with, is that not only should you be looking for your own role models or getting help with these things, but you should be looking for how you can be a role model to other young ladies, so we can start to break this cycle as we move on to future generations. So thank you for sharing that. What's the best business advice you've been given over the years? So we're all business owners here, and I'm curious what you can share with the audience, Clara.
I think just do it, right? I think when we're taught in a corporate world to make 500 analysis and put it in a spreadsheet and then into a PowerPoint, and at the end nobody looks at it, and that's not how it works if you have to earn your own money. I think being fast, trial and error, trying out new things, but at the same time also don't lose yourself in all these details. So I think that's what I personally learned is that, you just go for it, and then also stick with it. Don't change your strategy every 2 weeks, because then you don't have enough data points and experience to see if it actually worked or not.
Super. Thank you. And is there a book or a blog or a podcast you'd recommend to listeners?
Not for business, but for personal finance. Something that really gave me an aha moment was the book called The Millionaire Next Door. It's it's a book, basically it's a study in the US in the 90s, and it kind of changes your perspective of what a millionaire looks like and what not, right? And I think that really helps to understand also that anybody who is consistent over a long period of time is the most successful, actually, when it comes to money, and not what seems to be, right? I think that's something I would recommend, because it's really a study on millionaires and non-millionaires, basically.
Yeah. I remember reading that. It was shortly after I got out of university, and it had an impact onto me. So I'm really excited that you reminded me of that book and recommended. I can recommend it as well. Yeah. So if people would like to reach out and find out more about how to work with you and what you offer, where can they do that, Clara?
I think the easiest is to go to my website, finel.com. They can either book a free appointment with me or send me an email, but most information is right there.
Okay. So we'll put that and all other links to reach out to Clara on social media in the show notes, as well as a link to the book and to the book was what you recommended. Okay. Ilana, what's one thing you'd like people to remember from our conversation today?
Just be open to learning, open to, if you make a mistake, it's okay, try again, and just be open to receive. Women struggle, and this is a money block. Got loads of money blocks and money myths and all sorts of things. But one of the money blocks is that women struggle to receive. They struggle to receive money. They struggle to receive compliments. Somebody wants to pay for you for dinner. You say, no, it's fine. Let's They're always finding excuses to receive. Women are givers. And when we look at the difference between men and women are always doing for others. They're buying for others. They spend their money on others. They buy food for the family, gifts for people. It's always for others, not for themselves. Men spend money on themselves. They spend money on investments, cars, watches, whatever. Women need to learn to receive, and they can start with simple things, like if somebody pays you a compliment, that's a lovely top you've got on, say thank you. Not, oh, it's old, it cost me $5. Women need to learn to receive more, so you open the flow of money, don't block it.
I love that. A lot of times when I'm with friends and one pays the other a compliment, and then the other starts making up all this, excuses, right? And I go, just say thank you.
Thank you.
I know I do it myself sometimes. Actually, last night we were at Fosnacht and a friend offered to pay for my dinner. I said, oh no, you don't have to do that. So, yeah, there you go.
It be open to receive, allow the money to flow. There's plenty of money out there. Yeah. There's plenty of clients out there. There's no shortage.
No.
Stop being the shortage.
Yeah. Super great words. So, Ilana, what's some business advice that you've been giving over years? Some good business advice. Let me be clear.
Be open to change, be open to learning, and be open to receiving advice. When you speak to people, network, learn. Don't think you know it all. Be open to trying something different. If something isn't working, what Einstein says, if we keep doing the same things over and over, do something different if it's not working. Reach out to somebody if you need the help.
Yeah. Great advice. Super.
A lot of people are embarrassed and they think I can't. And I've had so many people come to me and say, been told about you, but it's a little bit embarrassing. I had to go and get help.
Yeah. Time and place. Yeah. So was there a book or a blog or podcast you'd recommend for listeners or like to share with us?
One of the books that I've read numerous times is The Psychology of Money, very similar to the book you were talking about, but a lot more updated, which is fantastic. It teaches you a lot of the psychology of the money and how to invest with compound interest over a long time, and just what different people and different circumstances. They tell stories throughout the book. I really recommend that book, The Psychology of Money, as well as Atomic Habits.
Okay.
Start with something small that makes the biggest difference.
I'm still making my way through it. I started reading it last month. So. It's super interesting. I can also recommend that one as well. Yeah. Okay. So we'll put those in the show notes. And Ilana, my last question is, where can people reach out if they'd like to find out more about how to work with you?
That interesting quiz. On my website, mindformoneycoaching.online. Take the quiz. Happy to have a call with you to tell you what I see in the scores, what's going on, and just how to change it. So really happy to do that.
Super. Excellent. So there you have the link. And again, we'll put those in the show notes. So ladies, this has been absolutely wonderful, and it always goes so fast. Anything else you'd like to add before we close this, wrap it up for the day?
Yes. I work with a lot of money myths that are bust because they're just myths. One of the myths that I see on every single person that I work with is, I should have sorted out my money by now. And I get 20-year-old, 30-year-olds telling me this, 40-year-olds. It doesn't matter. If today is the day you decide that you're going to sort out your finances, you're going to sort out your money, today's the day. It's a myth, and it will keep you being embarrassed and stop you from actually reaching out. Today's the day that you do it, or tomorrow. The fact that you haven't done it or you haven't fixed it by now, there's no shame or secrecy. The shame and secrecy about that is what you attach to it.
Excellent. Thank you. Sure. Clara, anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I would add to that note is yesterday was probably the best day to start, and the next best day is today. And looking actually at your financial situation gives you headspace, capacity for other stuff that is fun for your business and so forth. So flying blind when it comes to this topic, it might be kind of a strategy of not really wanting to know what the situation looks like, but in most cases gives you the opportunity to look at options, look at how to put together a plan and work on the plan, instead of knowing that you should have actually looked at the topic but feel a bit scared. So I think getting away of this scared feeling, I highly recommend starting earlier than later. And what Ilana also mentioned with the book on compound interest, obviously most people, when they learn this, there's like, why didn't I start when I was like 20 or so? So I think that's definitely something most people regret. And so, ideally yesterday, but best moment is today. Yeah.
I think that's a good note to end on, that it doesn't matter when you start, but that you do start. And whether it be your mindset, your personal finance, your pricing, or anything else, any other topic really, right? It's just a matter of get started. I want to wish everyone, hold on, my phone has started ringing. Sorry about that. It's laundry day. Of all things, it's laundry day, and I need to make sure that I don't forget my laundry. So I set the alarm and thought we would be done by then. So the joys of live interviews. All right, everyone. So first of all, I want to thank my two guests for being with me today. It's been such an empowering conversation, and I appreciate everything that you shared. I appreciate those of you who have joined us live, and those of you who will be listening later on. You can watch the replay, or if you want to wait until the podcast version comes out, then we'll see you then. I'd also like to let you know, for those of you who are interested in learning more about pricing, I have a web class coming up, Pricing Know-How for Startups. You can head on over to thepricinglady.com/webclass and get yourself registered there. The next dates are March 14th and 16th. You'll find them there. I wish everybody a great day. Thank you so much for being here with us. And as always, everyone, enjoy pricing.
Bye-bye.